Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. I see people are joining. I'm excited to have you here. We're not going to spend much time on off the top here because we've got so much good content to share with you today. We dubbed this webinar the worst IT support tickets, and then kind of subtitle what we can learn from them. We're going to try to find a balance of commiserating with each other and actually maybe improving ourselves a little bit. So we're very excited to share with you some of the submissions we received. I mean, I was literally crying laughing at some of them, and I think it'll be really fun to share some of them together today. So we're grateful that you're here. We're recording this. It's being streamed also to the Domotz YouTube and LinkedIn. So if you're joining there, hello. If you want to view the recording, we'll send it out, and also you can view it on those platforms as well. We've invited quite the breadth of different professionals in a support environment. So we've got managed service providers here. We have internal IT teams. We have integrators, residential and commercial. So we've got quite the gambit of support tickets that were submitted as part of this, and we're excited to share those today. Please chime in comments anytime. This is meant to be interactive. This is a bit of a fun, casual webinar, so participate. In fact, we'll be asking for participation later on, so stay tuned for that. I'm going to do just a very quick introduction, and then I'm going to welcome on some of our friends here that are with us today, co-presenters. I'm Jace Holyoke. I'm the Director of Product Marketing at Domotz. If you don't know Domotz, we're a network monitoring and management company. And I am a little bit technical, a little bit not, but I used to work at an MSP before I became a bad guy and joined the vendor dark side. But I now, at the MSP, I was primarily marketing, a little bit of operations as well. But I think just due to the nature of the business was like screwing in an access point one day and helping out with other things other days. So, see, we already have people saying their PC's not turning on. So like keep the support tickets coming in. We're not going to triage your support tickets in this webinar, though. No promises made there. Enough about me. I'm going to welcome on Dean here in a second. But I don't want to stop. I don't want to wait any longer to dive into our support tickets. So I've added a support ticket, which I'm going to share with Dean and have him live react. He has not seen it yet. So I'm going to add you on stage here, Dean. And before I give you time to introduce yourself and Empath, here's a support ticket that was received as a submission. I had a user who created a ticket because their mozzarella Firefox was not working.
A mozzarella. Yeah. Who hasn't been there when their mozzarella Firefox or I don't know, their net sandwich navigator isn't working? That's the worst. I think it'll be a recurring theme, but it goes back to, right, if our end users knew 100% of what they were doing, they wouldn't be asking us for help. And this kind of encapsulates that. This poor person just wants to get on the internet.
Bingo. It's a good one to start with too, because I didn't say this, but Domotz is Italy based. So we have to start each webinar with like a reference to,
So you talk like this, bibbity bobbity.
Some sort of pasta has to be mentioned.
Yeah.
All right, Dean, why don't you give us an introduction?
I would love to. My name's Dean. I am head of MSP success at Empath, which is a made-up title for a made-up department. We are a MSP-focused LMS and accountability platform, but I've been doing this for forever. I was a MSP service and operations manager for the longest time before I lost all my credibility and became a vendor. And before all of that, I was a residential and commercial integrator. I heard that you had some of those in the chat. So I used to do that as well. So I can actually work for a living. I still have tools. I know how to get dirty. Excited to be here today. My entire career has been around helping end users just get the job done. So this is kind of my jam. Thanks for having me, Jace.
Well, we're really excited to have you. I'm going to take you off stage and I'm going to bring on our other co-presenters, David and Matt from Helpt. And before I'll just add you right now, and then let me introduce you with this support ticket. Ticket, printer, not printing, went on site, ready for battle. Turns out just wasn't plugged in. Enter just needed a little power nap, plugged it in and solved the problem, case closed. And I will preface this as well by saying, I think like 30%, maybe 40% of the tickets that came in related to printers. I think that was probably expected behavior. But why don't you go ahead and introduce both of yourselves as well?
Well, I mean, first of all, I need to take a little power nap so that I can get back on track. But that is a terrible ticket. Matt has a funny story about a time where we had to send somebody out on site to be tall enough to understand what the issue was. Because it was a similar thing. Something wasn't plugged in, but nobody realized it because they couldn't quite have the vantage point that they needed. So that was a fun one. Intro.
Something was plugged in that case, but I guess we'll get to that later.
Matt and I actually came from a company that sold widgets into data centers, and we needed to have support that was a little beyond what we were capable of doing. And so we continued to try to find partners that could help us with that, and we kept running into a wall. And so we said, hey, let's go ahead and build that. Matt was the managing director of a whole business segment out in the UK for a while. I was the global support organization team lead. Really had an opportunity to build the thing that we needed, and so we did with help.
Awesome. Thank you for being here. I'm very excited to have Matthew and David and Dean here, add some credibility to this webinar, and have some fun with it as well. So let me just briefly share kind of what we're going to do here for this webinar. So we are going to spend probably the most time here in the box one, which is just kind of a live reading of some of the submissions that came in of the funniest, worst, best, whatever you want to call it, support tickets. And we've got an interesting flair on how we're going to present this, which I'll share in a second. But then we're going to, towards the second half of the webinar, flip the script a little bit. And both Domotz, Empath, and Helpt, we all operate in similar worlds, but do it differently. So I think we're going to challenge each one of the vendors here today to share their perspective on like what are challenges are we observing in the support world and what might we recommend as a best practice. So we'll do kind of like a kind of a power 15 minutes just on sharing that. And then we're going to kind of come back and vote on who we think deserves the title of the best or worst support ticket. And we have some prizes to give away there as well, which we'll mail afterwards. With that, though, and the real meat and potatoes of this webinar, I'm going to bring everyone back on stage. So I want to preface this by saying this was David's idea. So all glory to David if it works out. But we decided, we were kind of thinking, we got all these submissions and a lot of really good submissions. Do we just want to read them, or like how can we make this as fun but also educational for the attendees? And our friends at Helpt had this idea of like, what if we did like a mock trial and we called it Support Court, and we presented the ticket and had different presenters argue for or against the user that submitted the ticket. So that's what we're going to do. I mean, correct me if I'm missing anyone, but the idea here is we've created a brief based on the submitted support ticket, which I will share. And then we're going to randomly assign Matthew, David, or Dean to be either the prosecution in the case or the defense in which they're defending the user. And we're going to ask all of you to vote on if the user is guilty of support ticket malpractice or not. So anything else you want to add in, David, or anyone else before we jump in?
This has been David's brainchild for a long time. He actually used to run around with the wig on, and he finally stopped doing that, and then it came to fruition. So I'm glad that he finally gets to see his dream come true.
I'm going to have a hard time not giggling every couple seconds, but I'll do my best to not giggle during my statements.
I mean, I think once we get into the content of the submitted support tickets, it's only going to get worse. So just accept it and just embrace it. I'm all for the giggles. I was thinking actually, as I was preparing this slide, I was like, oh, the jury is just all of these technical folks attending the webinar. It's not really fair to the user. We needed to invite some grandparents in here who don't know what an HDMI cord is and like think a Switch is just something you get your grandkids for Christmas or something. Like maybe exercise your critical thinking abilities before you deliver your judgment. But I think we're just going to see how it goes. So we'll dive into the first one, the first case on the docket, which I've dubbed When Tech Support Meets Tire Tracks. And I've asked David to be the prosecution and Dean to be the defense for this case. And we've got the ticket submitted by Gary. If you're here, chime in. But I'll go ahead and present the brief, and then I'll bring on David for his opening remarks. He's ready. He's in the courtroom setting now. All right, so I'm going to take you all off stage. Oh, we even got the tie and blazer on. All right, so let me present this brief really quick. So here's a summary of what happened in this submission. A user submitted a support ticket stating their scanner wasn't working and asked IT to take a look. Seems pretty straightforward. Upon inspection, the support team discovered that the scanner had been run over by a forklift truck, completely crushed and non-functional beyond repair. Why is this in support court? Because it appeared to be a routine troubleshooting request. However, it revealed that the hardware had been abused pretty significantly. And the mismatch between the vague ticket and dramatic physical damage raises questions of accountability, communication, and industrial safety. So the key details for this trial before we hand it over to David for his prosecution opening statement. The user provided no context about the physical damage. The scanner was found in a flattened state, consistent with being driven over, likely a warehouse or loading area, and the forklift operator and driver device owner remain unidentified. So we've got the alleged offense, failure to disclose blunt force trauma to the equipment in a support request, and potentially reckless endangerment for the IT folks on staff. With that, I'll bring David on stage to deliver his opening statement.
Your Honor, members of the help desk jury, this case isn't about a broken scanner. It's about a broken process and a user who broke it further. The ticket said, "My scanner isn't working." Simple, routine, a line we've all read hundreds of times. But when IT arrived on site, they didn't find a device with a bad driver or a loose cable. They found a scanner flattened beyond recognition, crushed, twisted, forklifted into the next dimension. And yet, not a single word in the request mentioned physical damage. That's not just a vague ticket. That's omission with consequences. It wasted technician time, delayed actual resolution, and raised serious questions about safety in a shared workplace. More importantly, it signaled a disturbing mindset that IT is here to clean up disasters users won't admit to. We're not here to punish the accident. Accidents happen. But when something that obvious, that catastrophic goes unmentioned, that's not oversight, that's evasion. Support works when users tell the truth, when they give us context, when they act like partners, not passive observers of tech destruction. So at the conclusion of this case, we ask you not to convict this user of damaging equipment. We ask you to convict them of something worse, breaking the trust that keeps support functioning. Find them guilty of omission, misdirection, and treating IT like a guessing game. Thank you.
Wow, that was intense. David went right after the end user. That is not empathetic at all. First of all, who's to say that a slightly damaged scanner with some mild scuff marks is not still functional? I don't know. I don't work in IT. If it plugs in and takes electricity, that's why I'm calling you. Jokes aside, right, we do rush to think that the end user lied to us. I mean, David said that they didn't tell the truth, but we don't actually know that there was any malice here. Maybe they didn't think it was relevant, or more importantly, maybe they assumed we already knew because we can monitor everything else. So surely we knew and had parts on hand or could replace it. It's not their job to know how to fix stuff. That's our job. I don't think it's fair to blame anyone here. We're in the business of supporting the end user. That's all they're asking for. The forklift's irrelevant, although it is a little funny. Who hasn't been there? Who hasn't backed over a flatbed scanner in their parking lot as part of their job, right? Vote not guilty.
Okay, thank you, Dean. The defense wants you to believe this was just a vague ticket from a busy, ignorant user. But let's be honest, this wasn't a scanner not working. This was a scanner pancaked into a corporate crime scene, crushed, coiled, and casually reported as if it simply needed a reboot. They argue the user that didn't know what happened, but that's not an excuse. It's a problem. In a warehouse, ignoring safety and damage isn't harmless. It's reckless. This wasn't a report. It was a deflection, a way to offload responsibility without owning the truth. Our team wasted time and resources chasing a mystery that could have been solved with 6 honest words. It got run over by something. Support only works when users tell us what they know. Silence isn't neutral. It's misleading. Find the user guilty of omission. and remind everyone, support starts with honesty. Thank you.
You guys really gonna listen to and trust a guy that looks like Charlie from Always Sunny, certified in bird law? This guy has no idea what he's talking about. Who's wearing a unicorn space cat shirt? Me. And I'm telling you right now, there was no malice intended. We're just assuming this end user wanted to waste our time and was lying to us. They were panicking. They needed help. That's all they were asking for, was for us to help them. That's our job. And even if we do go on site and we're rolling our eyes, because come on, you ran over a forklift, a scanner with a forklift, which we have no evidence or proof actually happened, only allegations. Ultimately, we've got to help them out. That's our job. We are the 911 service when there is a technical emergency. And this was a technical emergency. It's not the EMT's job to criticize you for how you managed to shoot yourself in the leg or run over your, scanner with a forklift. We're there to help them out. Find this poor user not guilty.
Compelling cases from both of you. I also am trying to hold it together because I'm dying of laughing. This is hilarious. Okay. All right. So I need all of you that are attending to vote. Is the user guilty of failure to disclose blunt force trauma to the equipment in a support request, potentially reckless peripheral endangerment? Vote in the comments. And in the meantime, while you submit your votes, I wanted to share another submission of a support ticket that came in. Customer calls, my computer will not turn on a couple minutes into troubleshooting. Network monitor alerts start rolling in for the location. Confused, we ask, are the lights on in your office? Customer, no, the power went out a few minutes ago.
I've had that happen. When I was an MSP, we had a client that called us saying that the internet was out, and then they proceeded to finish the problem statement with, and a truck just hit a pole next to our office and knocked it over. I'm like, yeah, that sounds like the internet's out, friends.
That sounds like a future case that's coming, like 2 cases from now. Sounds eerily similar to that. So stay tuned for that. All right. So everyone says guilty. Dean, don't take it personally. You presented a very compelling case.
I mean, what was I going to do here?
What are you going to do?
Yeah.
So I knew that this gavel I got from high school Model United Nations would come in handy at some point in my life. So I need to deliver some sort of sentence. I was thinking about what sentence I should deliver. We got a few not guilties coming in. Maybe pity votes for you, Dean. I don't know. I'm not going to say that, but
no, these are quality jurors that understand that the burden of proof is on the prosecution, and David proved nothing.
Yeah, we do have attendees from all over the world. So I guess we don't know what judicial system we're operating in, but support court, I think the burden of proof relies with the prosecution. All right. I think I've seen enough. I'm sorry to say, but this user is guilty. We don't know who the forklift driver was. We don't know if it was the user who submitted the ticket, but regardless, I think we should sentence them to obtain a forklift certification. Whether or not that's even applicable to their job, they need to do it. So, all right, let's dive into the next case. We're going to kick David out, and we're going to bring Matthew on stage. I've dubbed this case case of the rogue rodent. And Dean, you've been assigned to be prosecution this time, and Matthew will be defense. And we've got this ticket submitted by Mark B. If you're here, chime in. Let me present the brief really quick for you. So the summary is a support request was submitted asking IT to retrieve a living rodent from underneath the server room cabling floor. A live animal species, unconfirmed but believed to be a rodent, had somehow gained access to a raised floor beneath a critical server environment. The IT team was called not to troubleshoot a network issue, but to perform pest control in a mission critical zone. This ticket blurs the line between technical support and wildlife rescue. While not explicitly covered in most job descriptions, the support team was tasked with critter extraction in an environment where uptime and hygiene are paramount. Key details. We know the rodent is alive and mobile beneath the sensitive infrastructure. There is no professional pest control contacted prior to this request. There's a risk to damage to cables, hardware, and also the technician's dignity. No evidence of the rodent had been authorized, and the alleged offense is unlawful delegation of rodent retrieval to IT personnel and potentially a violation of personal boundaries. But that's all for you to decide, the jury. And with that, Dean, you're on the clock.
Awesome. Well, we've all heard the jokes, right? You know, been at the customer site or at the end user site, and now their refrigerator won't work or their toilet won't flush. It's an age-old joke that if it has anything to do with electricity, it is IT's fault. I think we can all agree here, though, that gently persuading this rodent to exit the raised server floor and not partake in the halon gas is absolutely not the responsibility of the IT department. Although I would point out, the longtime service manager in me does point out, I think coordinating with IT to manage the extraction of this rodent is smart. I don't want to abdicate allowing a pest control company to be crawling around in my server room on their own, both for data security, physical security reasons, and that they could unplug a wire, but absolutely not the responsibility of IT. And I don't think there's a single juror here that would feel that IT people should be crawling around trying to catch a rodent. It could have rabies, or at the very least, it could grab onto my hair and I could open up a French restaurant and start cooking. And I don't want to do that. I work in IT for a reason. And if it was because I wanted to be a cook at a restaurant, well, I would have liked people and I wouldn't have been in IT. So you vote guilty. This is not IT's ticket.
I don't think I really even need to say much. I think Dean already solved the defense's case here. As Dean suggested, the responsibility is on IT to coordinate. The first question is, why did my client even submit this ticket? It was in a server room. Was IT already being delinquent in its duties maintaining that server room? Why should a non-IT user have even needed to submit that ticket? And what else are they supposed to do? They see the rodent in the server room. It's not their responsibility. Do you want somebody non-technical going into the server room and just unplugging things and using that cable to try to scare the rodent out from underneath the floor? No, of course not. So my client did the only reasonable thing by putting in the IT support ticket. Of course, I don't expect IT to be there with the net to try to catch the rat, but it is IT's responsibility, as the prosecution said, to coordinate and to ensure that for security reasons that people are shepherded in to take care of the rodent at large. After all, it's IT's job to maintain critical infrastructure. They are the modern day janitors, modern day maintenance. And so in this case, it was absolutely IT's responsibility to see that the server room was taken care of. So I think the prosecution said it, that yes, it is IT's responsibility to maintain and coordinate. And so why shouldn't the defendant have done exactly what the defendant did? I rest my case.
And here you see the typical attitude of the C-suite in the organizations we all work for. I don't think anybody's questioning that the IT department needs to be involved. First of all, we lock our server room. We're not clowns. So of course we need to be there to unlock it and let people in and potentially pull gear out of service. We don't want downtime. We're not idiots. But to think that somehow it's both within my budget and responsibility to find a vendor, manage that pest control vendor, to identify the problem. Obviously, as the jury has already pointed out, this is an issue for facilities and administration. Definitely do not want the opportunity cost of having one of my valuable technical employees whose primary role is to ensure the operability of our company crawling around on their hands and knees doing everything that isn't that, trying to catch a rat. If it even is a rat, we don't even know. What if there's 1,000 of them? Who knows? I don't have Domotz to monitor the rats inside my network room. I don't have anything to monitor them. So yes, I will concede. Should we be called to be a part of this, provide access, and make sure that the facilities team is treating our server room safely? I agree with that. Does our responsibility go any further than retrieving a living rodent? Heck no. Heck no. Vote guilty and make the defense crawl under that floor to get that rat.
All my client did was submit a ticket to IT. Now, before Dean went back to law school to become a prosecutor of IT help desk tickets, he was at an MSP. And I'm sure he would tell you that the only way to get an MSP to get the help desk technicians help is to submit a ticket. All my client did was pull IT into this process. Unquestionably not guilty.
Awful.
This is some good quality arguments. My first thought was, hey, they just trust the IT team because they just got it together. Like they're going to figure it out and get it done. But then I was also like, or maybe they hate the IT team and want them to have to deal with the rat. So I don't know. It's a tough case here. Please vote in the comments if you think the user is guilty. In the meantime, while those come in, let me share another submission from Steve. Also, I saw Mark chime in. This is his case about. He said guilty before the argument was even presented. So, all right, here's one that was submitted from Steve. We are in K-12 IT. These all came from the same person. Need a paper towel, clogged sink, a dead mouse. There's a rodent theme to this case. Four-legged kind of dead mouse, not the computer mouse, and a Chromebook that a student puked on, needed fixed immediately so they could continue with their test. That one gets me. That's a good one. All right, let's see. We got some not guilties. We got some guilties. Oh man, this is a tough one.
I'm gonna have to go back to law school if I lose this.
I will say as an internal IT person, I could see the guilty verdict being fair. If you're an MSP, a lot of times we've taught our clients that like mission critical IT infrastructure, just don't touch it without telling us. Like, please don't. So I could see a reasonable case here. I'm not the prosecutor, but I could see a reasonable case. This is an MSP client where they are, as Naomi pointed out, kind of literally following the process, even if it's ridiculous.
All right, I'm going to rule not guilty. Great case. All right, next case on the docket. The case of the snail mail support request.
Ooh.
All right, Dean, you're getting booted. You rest. You did two really tough cases there. So I'm going to bring David back on for this one. We've got Matthew as the prosecutor on this one. David, it's your time to shine on the defense. This one's submitted by Simone. And let me just present the brief really quick. All right. A user submitted a support request stating the email doesn't work. The delivery method for this was a physical letter in a literal envelope mailed to the help desk. Due to their email not functioning, the user reported the issue via the traditional postal service or internal courier, we don't know. The paper ticket arrived days later. The case raises critical questions about communication expectations, digital literacy, and the modern definition of urgency. In an age of chatbots and instant alerts, the user chose a method with a 3 to 5 day SLA. And some key details. The ticket reported an email outage using non-digital means. There was no escalation through phone, chat, or walk-up support. By the time the IT received the letter, the issue may have resolved itself. We don't know. The delivery method deemed historically accurate but operationally flawed. So is the user guilty of obstruction of timely support through the misuse of analog escalation pathways and failure to use any of the available 21st century tools? Matthew, you're up.
You know, Jace, I wanted to give you the chance to call for some decorum in the courtroom, to call for order, because really there's nothing I can do other than use some colorful language to say, what in the passive aggressive hell is this user doing? Trying to submit a ticket, a literal physical ticket by paper, by mail, by carrier pigeon. I mean, what is the expectation here? The user had no possible way to think that this was the correct way to request help. Sure, maybe they normally submit a ticket by email, and sure, if the email's not working, it's not possible to submit that ticket. But surely the user knows there are other alternatives. Surely their first thought would have been to pick up a phone if the email's not working. You can't make the argument that, oh, there's no confidence in anything electronic because my email's not working, my computer's not working, when you have a phone, if not on your desk, then right in your pocket. And you know that that phone is going to be much more reliable than the US Postal Service in delivering some letter 3 to 5 days from now. There's no question that this user was acting out of complete malice, trying to make a mockery of IT with this passive-aggressive approach to requesting support, when clearly if they actually needed support, they would have done something like pick up a phone with a little bit of urgency to get the help that they needed.
hold on, give me just a second. I need to confer with my client here. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I understand. My 80-year-old client thinks that snail mail is an appropriate way to communicate. Let's take a breath and look at this for what it is. It's not a case of sabotage or obstruction, but a classic example of improvised communication under pressure. The user's email, in this case, my 80-year-old client user's email, is their primary line to the outside world. And it went down. They couldn't message. They couldn't submit a digital ticket, and likely couldn't even check the help desk portal. So they did something remarkably practical and comfortable. They wrote it down and they sent it in. Yes, it was slow. Yes, it came by internal mail, but it came. And it said exactly what needed to be said. The email doesn't work. Now, the prosecution wants to treat this like a passive-aggressive affront. But let's be honest. How many times has digital-only thinking failed us? This user didn't make the situation worse. They reported the outage. Clearly and with initiative, using a method that, while outdated, was still effective. They didn't call, chat, or walk up. Maybe they didn't know how. Maybe that wasn't clear. Maybe they didn't feel those channels were appropriate or available. That's not obstruction. That's a gap in user education, not criminal behavior. Let's not confuse analog with incompetent. What the user did may not have been fast, but it was intentional, honest, and helpful. Thank you.
I don't see how we can reasonably chalk this up to just incompetence. I'm sure Grandpa there is used to sending letters, but if he's emailing, he is also using his phone. Whether or not he has a mobile, he must have some way to talk to the grandkids beyond his email there. There is no doubt that he is very familiar with the idea of a phone. 80, in this day and age, yes, 80 is quite old to us, but at the same time, an 80-year-old nowadays has been through an era where they used phones for most of their lives. They probably had a phone in their house growing up, went through years and years and years of any sort of support, customer service they needed, picking up the phone and calling for help. They were probably trained in an age where they could just pick up the phone and get whatever it is that they need by calling that switchboard. So there's no question that this user is very, very familiar with the concept of using a phone to get the help that they need when they need it. And they were clearly being malicious in using snail mail in order to get the attention, to shed light on how slow IT is in delivering its services. There's no question that this was an act of making a mockery.
Your Honor, I think this is leading. My client is hard of hearing. He has a difficult time with the jitterbug phone. Yes, it's the big red button on the right. He almost tried to just make a call now. He has no idea what he's doing. Maybe a phone was comfortable back in the day when it was hanging on the wall and it had that big pigtail of a cord on it. But nowadays, you hand somebody compute power that could send a rocket into space, and you expect them to know what to do with it. I think this passive-aggressive nature, this statement of that against my client is unreasonable. He's just a person looking to get support and using whatever means are necessary. This is resourcefulness under limitation and nothing more. I'm going to ask that you find the user not guilty, and perhaps we can get the prosecution to send them a thank you note via snail mail. Thank you.
All right.
If anyone's enjoying this, make sure that when you tell David, you don't tell him through email or LinkedIn. Make sure you send him a letter. We can drop his address at the end of the presentation here, so that really it's the only correspondence he appreciates.
This is you're spending more time than you're allotted, sir.
We'll just dox David live on this webinar so people can mail him physical letters about how he's performed in support court. All right. Is the user guilty of obstruction of timely support through the misuse of analog escalation pathways, failure to use any of the available 21st century tools? Vote in the comments. In the meantime, here's another one submitted by George. I used to work on copiers, and I got a call once that the copier had tipped over and the glass and parts were all over the floor. I was able to show the stored buttocks pic from the hard drive, and you could clearly read the tattoo. I think George, if you're on, I don't know. I'm scared to ask what the tattoo was, but I also want to ask what the tattoo was. So let us know if you think we should know.
You know, I actually I talked to him about this one, and he told me that it was a Nike swoosh, and to just do it as a stamp in the back area. I'll just leave it that way. So yes, terrible thing to be recognized by.
It didn't happen. Yeah. At your own discretion, Dean. All right. So it looks like I'm gonna say not guilty on this one. We had a lot of not guilty votes. The 80-year-old is not guilty. No sentence for him. All right. We can squeeze in one more case, but for the prosecution and defense, I'm going to ask that you button up your speeches a little bit because we are running out of time on this webinar. We got a little bit more to get to, but I don't want to miss this one. So, Dean, I'll bring you back on. I'm going to kick Matthew off. And I've got this case dubbed the case of the snipped connection. And Dean, you're going to be prosecuting, and David, you're going to be defense. Let me deliver the brief for you really quick. All right. This is actually a 2-slider brief because got a lot of context. Typically, low-maintenance nonprofit client reported their internet and VoIP phones were down with no clear cause. The ISP confirmed no outages and suspected the modem was offline. This is from a managed service provider. The technician headed on site to investigate, and upon arrival, the server closet appeared normal and the modem was functioning. A staff member approached and casually dropped the bombshell. Oh yeah, we cut the cable that was in the way outside. Turns out the staffer had taken it upon themselves to cut both ends of the building's active internet line, coiled it up, and threw it away. And then, with the confidence only found in tech-inflicted chaos, demanded that the technician splice and repair the severed cable on the spot, calling the downtime unacceptable. This isn't just a ticket, it's a case of self-sabotage followed by unrealistic support expectations. The individual who caused the outage is the same one insisting on immediate complex recovery with no tools or planning. Bonus irony, the on-site manager used to work for the MSP and had a good sense to call the ISP to fix it. A lot going on here. Key details for this trial. Storm damage caused the excess cable to droop. The employee cut both ends of the live line without confirming what it did. Demanded immediate resolution from IT after creating the issue, and the on-site manager intervened with reason. The alleged offenses are unauthorized cable amputation, gross underestimation of technical complexity, misdirected outrage, and attempted DIY infrastructure design. All right, who's prosecution? Dean, you're on the clock.
So this has happened to me. I'm sure it's probably happened to everybody in here at some point. And when I was in a previous life a low voltage guy, this used to happen to me there as well. Drywallers. Sorry if any of you are drywallers and just rotozip right through the cable. The worst. I don't think any reasonable person here is going to argue that the defendant here is not guilty of basically being irresponsible and egregious. I think we can all agree that it was pretty irresponsible and egregious to just cut a wire you didn't know what it did and then get mad. I think what the defense is going to attempt to claim is that we should find them not guilty for being upset. And I suppose if we were all the empathetic and caring sort, we would agree. But I mean, this is one of those tickets where you look at somebody, you're like, you did this to yourself. You could have seen this coming. You then directly understood the repercussions of your actions, and now you're blaming me. And since it was an MSP, all of you know this MSP also suggested putting in some sort of redundant connection so this wouldn't happen. And this client clearly declined that because, you know, budget reasons. So they're also cheap. And I get it. Not everybody can afford everything, and we got to work within those budgets. But this is just patently unreasonable. There is no argument to be made that this person is not guilty on any form or plane of justice. They did the crime. They were mean. They set insane expectations, and then they blamed us for it. I say we throw them right in solitary with no internet for the next 5 years.
Your Honor, members.
Get out of this one, Slick.
of peers and patch panels. I don't think we're here to deny that the cable was cut. And we're not here to deny that frustration played some factor in all of this. What we're here to do is provide context for why. Dean mentioned it. This was a nonprofit client. They don't have an in-house IT department or a certified cable person on staff. What they do have are people who wear a dozen hats a day, people trying to keep their workspace safe, functional, and clear of hazards. The cable in question had storm-related slack. It looked messy, maybe even dangerous. The staffer believed it was inactive or at least non-critical and acted with good intentions to clean up the area and remove a perceived risk. Did they confirm what the cable was? No. But was this sabotage or reckless infrastructure redesign? Absolutely not. They didn't flee the scene. They owned the mistake and immediately asked for help. They were upset. We've established that. They wanted it fixed fast. We've established that as well. But neither of those things are criminal. It's frustration at its finest. And it's frustration in the face of a broken system that they thought that they were improving. This isn't about cable crime. It's about a teachable moment, one that highlights the need for better labeling, clear guidance, and maybe a little more empathy. Thank you.
All right, I am going to cut the closing arguments from this one due to time. But compelling cases made. Is the user guilty? Chime in the comments. In the meantime,
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. 100% guilty.
In the meantime, my email doesn't work. Was sent via ticket via email. Here's one. I was scared to ask for more details, so I didn't. It was technically before we had a ticket system, but I should submit the one that would have closed with ticket withdrawn, wife murdered, husband arrested. Yikes. All right. I don't need to go there. Whoever said Greg said not guilty. I don't know, Greg. Maybe you're just the devil's advocate, but I'm definitely ruling guilty on this one. Thank you all for your participation in support court. I just want to quickly share a few honorable mentions we had. Okay, at my first job, someone vandalized a wireless access point with super glue. They turned it sideways, poured the whole bottle into the Ethernet ports, and then plugged it back in. My computer will not turn on. A couple minutes. Oh, we already shared that one. Second one. We had several tickets come in about unblocking adult content sites. I think I could have created a whole slide on it, but I just did this one bullet point instead. And then once my coworker deleted the entire Java backend to our most popular service on accident. And I think that ticket also said they had it backed up. Thank goodness. I once had to explain to a client that her Facebook wasn't broken. People just didn't like what she was posting. That seems like a good ticket. That'd be an enjoyable one to respond to.
For one of those, I would say that a happy employee is a productive employee. So, sometimes you gotta unblock some sites. I'm sorry. That's terrible. That is terrible.
We're not in prosecution mode anymore.
Yeah, that's fair. I gotta take the tile.
Yeah.
Well, David, I know personal history. You don't actually believe that.
That's true. I do actually have a story about that. One of my agents was spending a significant amount of time on bad sites and
research.
They were, what's that?
For research.
Well, yeah. I think he knew what he looked like himself, but that didn't stop him from sending those pictures to other people. So I don't think it was research on himself. It might have been, psychological
market research.
Yeah, for sure.
We're just getting feedback.
Yeah, that's it.
Oh man. All right. So I hope you enjoyed support court. I told David if we ever do this again, we need to do Jerry Springer themed. Yes. I don't know how that will play out. Maybe I have to be in person at an event, but I have a few more support tickets to share throughout this webinar. But really what I wanted to do is we're running out of time. So I'm going to say 3 to 4 minutes. I want to give each vendor 3 to 4 minutes to share. We all come from different perspectives. Like Domotz is software that we're selling, a tech that we're selling. Empath is primarily training, but there's a lot more going on there as well from Dean's perspective. And then Helpt is more of a service offering. So I wanted to give each one of us about 3 to 4 minutes to share what's a challenge that you're observing in the world of service delivery and what's a best practice you might recommend. for the folks on here that are involved in that process. So I'm going to kick it off here and just very quickly share the challenge the challenge that I wanted to call out was blind spots in shadow hardware, which I feel like this slide has probably been presented a million times. Shadow IT as a concept is old. It's been around for 10, 15 years, but it's still a problem today. And maybe even more so of a problem. And that's because networks are growing. They're becoming more complex. They're much more diverse now with all the IoT that's now connected, and devices are showing up and leaving without warning. So it's hard to have that visibility. And without that visibility, you have unexpected issues and downtime. There can be security vulnerabilities. There can be gaps in your SLA compliance. There's frustrated end users who are seeking answers. So without detecting that shadow IT, those blind spots, its impact is pretty significant. Like, it's higher costs for you, for the support team, and that's actual costs as well as resource costs to triage things and to resolve things. It's more stress because if you're responsible for devices that you don't know exist, that's a precarious situation to be in. Like, how can you be successful at your job if you don't know what you're responsible for? And the less satisfaction from the users that you're supporting. You know, they're frustrated because, hey, why didn't you see this was a problem and start working on it? Why do I have to be the one to submit the ticket? Whether right or wrong, that happens often. So unfortunately, this slide, although it's been around for a while, is still very much an issue today. So let me just share a quick perspective, and I don't want to take this time to be a sales pitch, but I wanted to share just a few details about kind of how we're approaching it from our perspective, and how we're hoping to make it a little bit easier for anyone involved in the service delivery motion. So for us, our perspective is visibility isn't optional anymore. The problem is that the tools needed to have that visibility are often gated behind paywalls, behind trials, behind extensive sales conversations. And our philosophy is that shouldn't be how it is. It's just basic foundational visibility, and it should be very accessible for everyone. So when I say visibility, I mean automatically discovering the devices that are connected, and not just, hey, there's a device connected at this IP, but what is that device? What are the properties of that device? What's the make, type, and model of that device? And that's what we're trying to do here at Domotz. We're trying to provide our customers with that visibility. So 2 quick points. One, we perform our scan at the layer 2 level on top of a layer 3 scan to identify devices by the MAC address, which allows us to identify what the actual device is. And the second thing we're doing to provide more visibility to folks is developing a free version of our product that we are releasing very soon. Think like days, not months, that provides access to that discovery at no cost forever. We shouldn't be gating visibility behind these paywalls or behind these sales conversations. It should be available to everyone, and that's what we're working towards at Domotz. So one kind of feedback, like real world example I wanted to share, comes from Richard. His quote's down below, but he just recently deployed Domotz and he didn't realize he had a lot of blind spots, but one of the blind spots he uncovered was an operational switch that had been drywalled into the ceiling. So if you needed some real world example of, hey, this is still a problem, I'm sure you have your own experiences, but having that visibility helps them be so much more effective. And so there's a lot of different ways you can get that visibility, manual or with a tool. We recommend that you do whatever it takes to make it happen, and we hope that we can be a potential solution for that at no cost here in the near future. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Dean, who's going to take us through his perspective.
Hey, everybody. Well, if you saw with Support Court, being that I was in service and ops for so long, I had a lot of trouble really actually articulating that any of those defendants was really guilty. And that really boils down to what we find, I think, in all our support organizations, that did all of the users in all of those tickets technically do something wrong? Did they not follow our explicit process? Yes, they were technically incorrect, but all of them were right to ask us for help. And one of the things that we do at Empath is provide training for your support teams to kind of better understand the value proposition of your organization's help desk and why we're there. And like I have on this slide here, like why do those bad tickets trigger that reaction? Why do I want to pull up the rules of tech support from Reddit and start off with rule 1, end users lie, right? Because most good tickets, they create a dopamine cycle of clarity, solution, resolution. But bad tickets don't. Every one of those bad tickets, there's an element that breaks that cycle. I'm not getting my dopamine response as a help desk tech, and I don't like that. And then I want to start looking for why and blaming people. Our techs thrive on small wins. You could hit the next slide for me there, Jace. Should have planned ahead. So those bad tickets, I like to look at them now as a training problem, not a people problem. My team is not naturally born with the skill set, or at least not all of them aren't naturally built with a skill set to recognize that these people need help. And it's our job to find ways for those end users to fail less when they're asking us for help. So we want to use these as teaching moment examples with our teams. We want to review these tickets. We want to have examples of excellence and failure, literally like a lookbook like you do for fashion, of good tickets and bad tickets and why, and explain that why statement to our team so they understand it's not just about following the process, it's also empathizing and understanding the user. And if you could hit the next slide for me, my friend, I'm trying to fly through these. It's important to think about what our techs actually can control, because in most of our organizations, the actual frontline techs have a fairly limited authority scope to control what's happening around them. They absolutely can seek more information. Triage is one of the most important things your techs can control. They can ask those clarification questions early, and then they can document all of that so whoever works that ticket next has a complete picture. We can always set expectations. Doesn't matter who we are, we always have the power to reset or set the user's expectations. Half of those tickets, 5 seconds of polite expectation management probably would have turned it into a much more pleasant situation. And we have to understand that our techs sometimes are just not going to have innate emotional intelligence in a moment. So the more we can give them templates and snippets that they can use to pop into their ticketing, their chat, their email, that will prompt for that information we need without forcing that employee to have explicit emotional intelligence, is really helpful. And for those of you that know me, I don't love AI in frontline tech support, but this is a good use case for AI. If you have an AI tool, have that AI tool help you kind of let the techs know what a possible response would be. Hit me with that next slide, Jace. So coach for resilience, not just resolution. I know if you're in an internal IT team, you are probably a little bit more focused around mean time to resolution than we are at an MSP. But either way, you really want to think like it's not just technical, you're supporting people. If we had no end users at our jobs, most of our technology would not break. We're supporting people. That forklift did not run over that scanner on its own. Even if it was unmanned, somebody started it or performed poor maintenance. Users create our problems. So there's a lot of psychological load that goes on our help desk. I mean, literally imagine, I used the example earlier in support court of an EMT. Imagine being an EMT and every day, all you do is show up and see just gore and pain and sadness. That is a lot. Our frontline techs live that life. So use coaching, not criticism, even when they don't handle these situations well. Help them to talk through what about the ticket or the situation was unclear, what could have helped them to be more successful. We want to think of this like we are going to the bowling alley with toddlers. We are going to inflate the bumpers. We want kids to get the balls down and hit pins, not have gutter balls and be sad. We want your techs not to have gutter balls. We want them to have wins and to feel like they're helping people. And hit me with that last slide, Jace. You are the best slideshow manager ever, Jace. I very much appreciate you. So your techs become what you reward. And if you've heard this before, it's because it's the same thing as your users become what you reward. Your dog becomes what you reward. Your children become what you reward. It's the same thing. So you will get further by recognizing and rewarding the behavior you want than punishing the behavior you don't like. Recognize those great notes, those clear expectations, that emotional regulation. Shout it out and create an internal system using whatever you have available to highlight that. What are the best escalations that have been written? What's the most polite user follow-up in a situation where anyone else would have thrown their monitor through a window? what was the best possible save on the worst ticket? Maybe back to that rat in the server room, the help desk tech who gets that immediately deflects that over to the account management team to set up a call to bring in a third-party vendor. What are cases of that happening where everything worked perfectly that you can highlight and celebrate with your team? Make that invisible work visible. None of that really has anything to do with Empath. We're a training platform. We can help you with some of this stuff, but those are all just actionable things to think about in your help desk and your support organizations when you do have these difficult tickets. And I think the next people coming up, they're going to explain probably everything I just said from a slightly different stance because they are amazing and they live this life. So dramatic foreshadowing. Let's get the help people up here.
Hey, thanks, Dean. I want to just start with saying that Dean already kind of mentioned this idea of expectations, and we're living in 2025. The things that we expect as consumers of all of the things that we consume is that it works, that it's consistent, that it's available, that it's quick, and that it's personal. Thanks a lot, Amazon. Definitely set the bar pretty high. And to Dean's point, this idea of setting those expectations, that's in a lot of cases all people really want. They want to know what's going to happen next. They want to know that they can trust that when you say what's going to happen next is actually what's going to happen next. And this happens in a lot of different ways and a lot of different times during our day. Matt, I usually do these slides myself. Do you want to chime in on that one?
Can I just give you the nod and the smile and the thumbs up? You're spot on. People, there's too much for everyone to think about and remember and be worried about. People just want to know that there's something that's taken care of. It's there for them. It works. It's what they need, and they don't have to think about it.
And for us to bring it back a little bit to this space, you as an MSP, what your clients are expecting from you are not any different than what they're expecting from Amazon. They're expecting you to answer. They're expecting that you know what to do. They're expecting that you care, and they expect you to fix it. And Steve Jobs said it: if you work from the technology back towards the end user, is that what he said? Back towards the customer experience, that's really the way to understand what's going on here. And if you don't, and this isn't Steve Jobs, this is PricewaterhouseCoopers, 80% of customers are going to leave after just one bad experience. Those bad experiences don't have to be that there's a rat in the server room. The bad experience has to be that they didn't know what was going to happen next, that the expectation wasn't set, that you didn't care, that you didn't show that you cared. I think it's a huge thing for us at Helpt, trying to help you be the front line to help set the expectations for your customers so that you can do the handful of things that are required for them.
And like's been said a few times, it's all about supporting people. You're not supporting the technology, you're supporting the humans using that technology. And the users know that too. They don't expect you to be perfect. And they put in that ticket, and if you're able to help, that's great. Hopefully you can help more often than not. But if you try and you need to escalate, they're usually pretty understanding. If they put in that ticket and you don't give them a response for 3 days, whether or not you can eventually solve it is kind of moot, because they're going to be so frustrated and stressed about what's going on that they'll have a bad experience, even if you do solve it on that first touch 3 days later.
This slide says that, so I'm just going to give it a thumbs up. Thanks, Jace. Thanks for having us on, and I hope everybody enjoyed Support Court.
I hope it met all of your dreams and expectations, David.
Beyond.
We're at time, but I want to... What was that?
He's there.
Oh, okay, cool. We're at time, but I want to just say we're going to give gifts away. So beyond just the gift of you being a jury member in Support Court, we've kind of outlined here are 6 finalists. We're asking you all to vote. So what I want to do, I'm going to just post a comment for each one of the tickets, and I'm just going to ask that you thumbs up which number, maybe pick 2 that you want to thumbs up, and we're going to give the top 3. We're going to give them some swag and some gifts and things like that. We will also send out the recording afterwards, and if you want to get a hold of us at all, we'll make sure that our contact information is all readily available and you know where to find everyone. So we hope that you enjoyed today's webinar, and we hope that it was fun, and maybe we'll see you again at the next one, and keep your eye on Empath and Helpt and Domotz moving forward. It was really good to spend time with you all. I don't know if any of you have any last comments as the votes come in or not.
What's the right saying? Court adjourns.
Order in the court.
All right, we're going to go ahead and adjourn there. We'll tally the votes on the back end and make sure we get your address for the 3 winners. Thanks again for everyone's time, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks
for
everyone.
having us.